A black car stops before a glass-walled mansion on the edge of Seoul. The rain is soft, but the sky feels heavy, as if warning Amara of what waits inside. Amara, a black Nigerian woman in her mid-20s with calm brown eyes and simple long braids, steps out carrying one small suitcase. She looks up at the tall, silver gates guarded by armed men. Inside, marble floors stretch endlessly. The air smells of money, gun oil, and loneliness. "Miss Amara, this way," a butler says coldly. She follows him through the hall where portraits of one man dominate every wall, Dae-hyun, the new mafia heir of Seoul. When the elevator doors open, she meets him. Dae-hyun stands by the window in a black suit, his sharp jawline cutting through the city lights. A Korean man in his mid-20s, eyes dark and unreadable, like a storm just before it breaks. "You're the new nanny?" His voice is calm, too calm. "Yes, sir." "Amara Daniels," she replies, straight-backed but nervous. He studies her like a man choosing a target. "My daughter doesn't need affection. She needs discipline. Do your job, and you'll be fine. Break my rules, you're out." Amara doesn't flinch. "Children don't grow with rules, sir. They grow with love." His jaw tightens. "Then this house will teach you otherwise." Upstairs, she finds Harin, a tiny girl with long black hair and a soft voice. She's sitting alone in her room filled with toys she never touches. "Hello, Harin. I'm your new nanny." No response. Only the faint sound of a piano from downstairs. Amara kneels beside her. "You don't have to talk. But you can draw if you like." She hands her a sketchbook. Slowly, the little girl draws two stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands. It's the first time anyone has seen her smile. From the doorway, Dae-hyun watches. He says nothing, only turns away. That night, the dining table is silent. Dae-hyun sits at the head, Harin pokes at her food, Amara stands quietly behind. "Eat," he orders. Harin looks down. Amara steps forward, her voice soft. "She's not hungry." "Maybe." He cuts her off sharply. "You don't speak unless spoken to." Amara clenches her fists. "Then maybe you should try listening for once." The air freezes. The guards exchange looks. Dae-hyun's eyes narrow, but instead of shouting, he stands abruptly and leaves the table. Harin whispers, "Thank you," so quietly it almost breaks her heart. Amara can't sleep. She walks into the garden where the koi pond glows under the moon. She hears a door open behind her. It's Dae-hyun, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loose, a glass of whiskey in hand. He doesn't look like a monster now, just a man drowning in silence. "Why do you care so much?" he asks quietly. "Because someone has to," she answers. He stares at her for a long moment, then turns away. "You'll regret staying here, Miss Amara." "I already do," she whispers as he disappears into the shadows. The next morning began like every other day in the mansion, cold, quiet, and predictable. The kind of silence that made even the maids whisper. But this time, there was a difference. Amara had decided she wouldn't let Dae-hyun's temper control the air everyone breathed. She walked into the dining room, carrying a tray of breakfast. Dae-hyun sat at the far end of the long marble table, dressed in a crisp black suit, scrolling through his phone with that same emotionless face he wore like armor. "Good morning," Amara greeted politely. He didn't look up. "You're late." "I'm not," she replied calmly, placing a plate in front of him. "You're just early." That made him pause. His eyes lifted, sharp and dark, meeting hers for the first time that morning. "Watch your tone, Miss Amara." "I'm only saying the truth," she said lightly. "And you should eat before your coffee gets cold." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, he let out a quiet sigh and picked up the cup. "You talk too much." "And you frown too much," she said under her breath, turning away before he could respond. Harin giggled softly from her seat, covering her mouth. Daehyun shot his daughter a look, but she only smiled brighter, the kind of smile that had been missing for far too long. That small sound, his daughter's laughter, made something flicker in his chest. He quickly looked away, but Amara saw it. And she smiled too. Later that day, Amara took Harin out into the garden. The air was warm, and the little girl's laughter filled the space like sunlight breaking through clouds. They blew soap bubbles, danced in the grass, and for the first time in weeks, Harin looked like a child instead of a ghost in a mansion. From the balcony above, Daehyun watched them, unseen, hands in his pockets, a storm brewing behind his calm expression. When Amara knelt to tie Harin's shoelaces, Daehyun's gaze softened without his permission. But the softness scared him. It made him angry at himself for feeling. Later that evening, he called her to his office. "You are forgetting your place," he said coldly, sitting behind his massive desk. "My place?" Amara repeated, arms crossed. "Is it wrong to make your daughter happy? You are too familiar. You talk back. You make her." He stopped mid-sentence, jaw tight. "Make her what? Laugh?" Daehyun stood up so suddenly that his chair scraped against the floor. "Don't challenge me, Miss Amara. You work here because I allow it." "And you think that scares me?" she asked, stepping closer. Her voice was low but steady. "You can fire me right now if it makes you feel powerful, but you and I both know you won't. Because Harin needs me." The air between them went still, heavy, charged, and alive. His sharp jaw tightened, his breathing deepened, and for the first time, he didn't have an answer. Amara turned and left the room, her heart racing, not from fear, but from something she couldn't name. That night, Daehyun found himself standing outside Harin's bedroom door. He could hear Amara's soft voice reading a story inside. "And the little girl wasn't afraid anymore," Amara said gently. "Because she finally knew that even the coldest hearts could warm again." Daehyun's hand froze on the doorknob. When the story ended, he watched Amara tuck Harin into bed. Her braids shimmered faintly under the lamp. There was a tenderness in her movements that he hadn't seen in years, maybe ever. He didn't move until she stepped out. Their eyes met in the hallway, her brown skin glowing softly in the dim light, his sharp features shadowed but uncertain. Neither spoke. But something wordless passed between them, a truce, maybe, or a promise neither dared to admit. The next evening, Amara prepared dinner as usual, but this time, she didn't expect him to join. He never did. When Harin asked if her father would come, Amara smiled sadly. "He's busy, baby. But maybe someday." And then, to her shock, she heard footsteps. Daehyun walked in, silent as always, but instead of going to his study, he sat down at the table. Harin's face lit up instantly. "Daddy." Amara froze mid-step. "Would you like me to bring you a plate?" she asked carefully. He nodded once. "I'm already here, aren't I?" Dinner was quiet at first, until Harin started talking about her day. She told him how Amara helped her draw, how she made funny faces to make her laugh. And for the first time, Daehyun smiled. It wasn't full, but it was real. Amara saw it and looked away before her heart could betray her. The night ended with Harin fast asleep and Amara cleaning up the dishes. When she turned, she found Daehyun standing behind her, watching quietly. "You're changing her," he said softly. Amara blinked. "I'm just doing my job." His eyes softened. "No. You're doing more than that." It was the closest thing to gratitude she would ever hear from him. And that night, for the first time since she arrived, Amara dreamed of him. The mansion that had once been filled with quiet tension was changing. For the first time in years, laughter had returned, soft, shy, uncertain, but real. Harin's laughter. Amara had brought life back into a house built on shadows. Daehyun found himself staying home more often, sitting at the table he had once avoided, watching as Amara brushed Harin's hair or hummed softly while serving dinner. It made something ache inside him, something he had long buried under control and cruelty. But peace, in his world, never lasted long. Amara tucked Harin into bed that night. The little girl clung to her tightly. "Will you still be here tomorrow?" she whispered. Amara smiled gently. "Of course. I'll always be here, Harin." Outside, Daehyun stood in the hallway, listening. His sharp jawline tightened. He didn't know why the words made his heart beat faster. He wasn't used to promises. They always broke. The next morning was chaos. Harin's room was empty. The window slightly open. A small pink slipper lay abandoned near the bed. Daehyun's men searched the grounds. The security footage showed nothing clear, just shadows, and the faint shape of someone who looked like Amara. His blood turned cold. He slammed his fist against the marble table. "Get her here," he ordered his guards, voice low, dangerous. Now. When Amara walked into the grand hall, she knew something was wrong. The house felt colder. Daehyun stood at the center, dressed in black, eyes filled with fury and heartbreak. His sharp jawline was set in stone. He threw a photo across the floor, a blurry frame showing someone near Harin's window. "Explain this," his voice cut through the air. Amara bent down, tears in her eyes. "That's not me, Daehyun. I would never." "Lies." His tone cracked like thunder. "You used my daughter to get close to me. Was this your plan all along? To sell her out to my enemies?" Her heart shattered. She tried to step closer, but his guards blocked her way. "Daehyun, please. You know me. You've seen me with her." But he didn't listen. His walls were back up, higher than ever. "Pack your things," he said coldly. "You're fired. And if you ever come near my daughter again, you'll regret it." Amara left the mansion that night under the heavy rain. Her simple clothes were soaked, her heart breaking with every step. Back in his office, Daehyun sat alone, a drink untouched beside him. The city lights reflected in his eyes, but he saw nothing. Harin's laughter echoed in his mind. So did Amara's voice, her kindness, her courage. He didn't want to believe she could betray him. But every piece of evidence pointed at her. Days passed. Weeks. The mansion grew cold again. Harin was found, safe but frightened. The kidnappers had demanded ransom but disappeared before they could be caught. Harin kept asking for Amara, crying through the nights. Daehyun never answered. He simply stood outside her room in silence, guilt growing like a storm he couldn't escape. Late one night, one of his men entered his office. "Sir," he said quietly, "we found the person who took the girl." It wasn't the nanny. It was one of the rival clans. She tried to stop them. The glass in Daehyun's hand shattered. His heart stopped. He remembered the look in Amara's eyes that night, the pain, the disbelief. She had been telling the truth. He left the office and drove through the rain, searching for her. But when he reached her small apartment, it was empty. A single note sat on the table. "I forgive you, Daehyun. Tell Harin I love her." Months later, Daehyun sat in Harin's room. His sharp jawline looked softer now, his eyes tired, hollowed by regret. Harin was drawing with crayons, a family of 3 holding hands. When she showed him the drawing, he smiled faintly. "Who's this?" he asked, pointing at the woman. "That's Miss Amara," Harin said innocently. "She said she'll come back when the rain stops." Daehyun looked out the window. Rain was falling again. He whispered quietly, voice trembling. "I'll wait."